Hey guys, imagine stepping into a time machine. The machine shudders, shakes violently, and then opens the door to 252 million years ago. What you see is not a lush green forest, nor a vibrant grassland. Instead, you see a dying world, a world where life has all but disappeared. This is the time known as the Permian-Triassic extinction, or what scientists call the Great Dying, the greatest death in Earth's history. More than 90% of marine life, 70% of terrestrial life. Entire ecosystems that once thrived had collapsed in just a few 100,000 short years on the geological scale. The scene resembles the end of the world. Rivers that were once full of fish have become stagnant, suffocating, stinking streams. Giant forests that once reached the sky have been reduced to ashes. Only charred stumps remain. The seas were no longer deep blue but turned into giant cemeteries. Warm, oxygen-poor water, filled with decaying corpses. Not a single coral reef survived. If you looked up at the sky, what you saw was not the bright light of the sun, but a dark atmosphere, thick with toxic gases. The Siberian Traps, one of the largest volcanic eruptions in history, turned the Earth into a giant furnace. For hundreds of thousands of years, volcanoes in the Siberian region continuously released huge lava flows and countless toxic gases such as carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. The carbon dioxide accumulated, causing the Earth to heat up to terrible levels. Global temperatures rose, the oceans lost oxygen and became dead seas. Sulfur gas created acid rain that destroyed the remaining forests. A vicious cycle was formed. Earth warmed, life died. More toxic gases. Earth got hotter. The world then resembled a horror version of the planet Mars. The surface was dry and desolate, in some places still smouldering from uncooled lava flows. There were no vast grasslands, no chirping insects, no migrating animals, just a deadly silence. So who survived the apocalypse? Surprisingly, there were a few resilient creatures among the ashes. One notable survivor was Lystrosaurus, a herbivorous reptile the size of a pig, with a short snout and two strangely curved fangs. Fossils of this reptile have been found everywhere, from South Africa to India and Antarctica, proving that it survived and spread throughout the world. In fact, at one point Lystrosaurus made up 90% of all land vertebrates. Picture the scene. On a cracked, red-hot land under a harsh sun, herds of Lystrosaurus scrabble, nibbling at the few remaining bits of vegetation. There were few enemies, little competition. The world was so empty that they became the reluctant kings of the post-apocalyptic Earth. But that throne was only temporary. For in the darkness, a small and humble group of creatures awaited their opportunity. They were not yet dinosaurs, but they carried within them the traits that would shape the future of the planet. They were archosaurs, the ancient ancestors of dinosaurs, crocodiles, and later birds. With their upright gait, powerful respiratory systems, and rapid adaptations, they were the seeds that were about to write the next chapter in the history of life. But right now, the world was still a harsh place. All the continents were combined into a single supercontinent, Pangaea. From the North Pole to the South Pole, there was only one giant landmass, the interior as dry as a desert, and the coasts had only a hint of green life. Imagine a supercontinent many times the size of Africa, stretching from pole to pole on the planet, where the interior was dry and the rains were scarce enough to sustain the jungle. In such a setting, life began anew. Tiny fern forests sprang up from the ashes. New insects flourished, taking advantage of the ecological void. Small rivers became shelters for giant amphibians. And in the shadows of sparse forests, creatures called archosaurs took their first steps. You can imagine the sounds of the world then. There were no birdsongs, no roaring herds of animals. Instead, there was the howling of wind across the deserted steppes, the crackling of lava in the void, and the occasional heavy footfall of a Lystrosaurus slogging its way through the gloom. Amidst the bleakness, a question hung in the air. Who would rule the planet? The tiny creatures did not yet know that fate had chosen them. It was no accident that the archosaurs had survived. Thanks to their upright posture and efficient breathing, they could run farther, endure hotter climates, and hunt more effectively than the survivors. Though still in a low position, they were quietly adapting, quietly reproducing. The Permian-Triassic extinction was like the Earth hitting the reset button. All the previous rulers had been wiped out. The stage was now empty, waiting for new actors to step up. And in that darkness, the dinosaurs were preparing to take their first steps into history. Close your eyes and picture a map of the Earth. Forget the 7 continents we know today. Forget the familiar outlines of North America, Europe, or Asia. Instead, imagine all of them welded together into one colossal landmass that stretched almost from pole to pole. This was Pangaea, the supercontinent, a continent so vast it swallowed the horizon in every direction, a world that looked both alien and hauntingly empty. The interior of Pangaea was brutal, far from the seas, the land baked under merciless heat. Deserts the size of modern countries rolled on endlessly, with dunes towering higher than skyscrapers. Rain seldom reached the heart of this giant landmass, and when it did, storms came in sudden, violent bursts, flooding the land for weeks before disappearing into drought once again. Life here was a gamble, a constant, desperate struggle to survive. But along the coasts, where ocean winds brought some measure of relief, life clung stubbornly to the edge. Sparse forests of conifers and cycads dotted the landscape, fragile ribbons of green against the red and ochre backdrop of the desert. Rivers snaked out of the mountains, carving narrow corridors where plants and animals gathered like desperate refugees. These were the oases of Pangaea, pockets of hope in a land still reeling from the devastation of the Great Dying. It was here, in these thin strips of survival, that new contenders quietly prepared to rise. Among the survivors were the archosaurs, a strange clan of reptiles that looked unremarkable at first glance, but carried with them a set of evolutionary tricks that would change everything. Unlike most reptiles, which sprawled low to the ground, the archosaurs stood taller, their legs held directly beneath their bodies like pillars. This simple adjustment meant they could move faster, breathe deeper, and travel farther than their lumbering rivals. Think of them as the marathon runners of their age. While other creatures struggled to crawl through the scorching dust, archosaurs could stride with purpose. Their lungs, more efficient than those of their competitors, gave them stamina. Their upright posture freed them from the clumsy side-to-side waddle of older reptiles. They were, in essence, built for survival in a world that demanded endurance above all else. At first, they were small and forgettable. Imagine dog-sized creatures with sharp teeth and long tails darting through the shadows. They hunted insects, small reptiles, and whatever scraps of greenery managed to take root in the desert margins. To larger predators of the time, they must have seemed like nuisances rather than threats. Yet sometimes history belongs not to the mighty, but to the persistent. The mighty survivors of the Permian, massive amphibians as long as a car, and squat tusked plant eaters, still roamed Pangaea, but their dominance was fragile. The world had shifted against them. They were relics of an older time, ill-suited for the harsh new climate. Archosaurs, in contrast, were like new recruits on a battlefield. Adaptable, quick, and eager for opportunity. Picture this: the sun sinking low over a Triassic floodplain. A herd of barrel-bodied herbivores called dicynodonts graze along a riverbank, their bulky frames heaving with every breath. From the shadows, a pack of slender archosaurs watches. They are not large enough to bring down the giants, not yet. But they don't need to. Instead, they dart in for the weak, the young, the careless. It is a strategy of patience, of precision. In a world where survival depends on speed and agility, they are already playing the long game. Life in Pangaea was not simply survival, it was competition on a razor's edge. Every drought threatened to wipe entire populations from existence. Every flood could sweep away herds and forests alike. Ecosystems were fragile, like glass sculptures trembling on the brink of collapse. Yet through this instability came opportunity. Every time one lineage faltered, another had the chance to step forward, and step forward they did. From the archosaurs would come 2 very different dynasties: the crocodile line archosaurs, destined to rule rivers and swamps, and the dinosaur line archosaurs, destined to rule everything else. The stage was set, the players were in place, but no one watching the Triassic world could have guessed which group would seize the crown. Still, there were clues. Footprints left in the mud of what is now southern Africa reveal small, nimble creatures running in pairs or groups, their stride confident, their bodies balanced. In Argentina, bones of strange new predators lay buried beneath volcanic ash. Lightweight, fast, built for the chase, These were not yet the giants of the Jurassic or the celebrities of the Cretaceous. They were experiments, prototypes, the first whispers of what dinosaurs would one day become. But in Pangaea's early days, no one creature had yet claimed the throne. It was still a world of scattered survivors, still stitched together from fragments of what had come before. A desert could silence an entire valley for years. A sudden storm could drown thousands in a matter of days. To live here was to gamble with extinction every single season. And yet, somehow, life pressed forward. Ferns crept across the ruins of old forests, spreading spores in the wind like green smoke. Insects, ever opportunistic, thrived in the warmth, filling the air with buzzing swarms. Amphibians lurked in swampy hollows, their eyes breaking the surface of stagnant pools. And in the shadows, archosaurs watched and waited. It is hard to overstate how different the Earth looked at this time. The sheer scale of Pangaea defies modern imagination. Its heart was so far from the sea that rainfall rarely reached it, leaving endless plains of cracked mud and salt flats. Winds howled across the continent with nothing to stop them, carrying dust storms that could blot out the sun for weeks. Volcanoes still dotted the landscape, their plumes painting the skies blood red. Earthquakes shook the ground as the colossal landmass shifted and strained under its own weight. Yet, even in this harshness, there were signs of renewal. Primitive forests of conifers and ginkgos took root along rivers. Shallow lakes, replenished by rare storms, became sanctuaries for fish and amphibians. On the fringes of these oases, herds of small herbivores picked through the undergrowth while predatory reptiles patrolled the edges, ever watchful for an opportunity. It was a patchwork world, harsh and unforgiving, yet brimming with potential. The rise of archosaurs was not inevitable. Many lineages emerged during this time, each adapted to a specific niche. Some amphibians grew massive, dominating waterways. Some reptile groups specialized in crushing plant matter, while others became swift insect hunters. But the archosaurs had something the others lacked: versatility. They could thrive in deserts and wetlands, endure droughts and floods, and adapt to shifting climates. This flexibility would prove to be their greatest strength. Over millions of years, the archosaurs diversified. Some became massive, armored creatures that lumbered through fern prairies. Others became sleek, crocodile-like ambush predators that ruled the rivers. And a few evolved longer legs, lighter bodies, and sharper senses, traits that set them apart from the rest. These were the early steps toward the dinosaurs. At this point, they were still overshadowed by other predators. Giant amphibians could swallow them whole. Rowisuchians, enormous crocodile-faced hunters, patrolled the plains, snapping up anything that moved. Even the herbivores were formidable, with barrel-shaped bodies and heavy limbs capable of crushing a small predator beneath their weight. The archosaurs' future dominance was far from guaranteed, but evolution rewards endurance, and time was on their side. With each generation, their adaptations became more refined. Their limbs grew stronger, their lungs more efficient. Their metabolisms accelerated, allowing them to move for longer periods without rest. Slowly, quietly, they began to outcompete their rivals. And then, as so often happens in Earth's history, catastrophe reshuffled the deck once more. Volcanic eruptions and climate shifts at the end of the Triassic would eventually trigger another mass extinction, one that wiped out many of the archosaurs' fiercest competitors. When the dust settled, the survivors would find themselves in a world with fewer rivals and more room to grow. The seeds of that future were already sown here, in the furnace of Pangaea. The continent's punishing climate forged creatures that could endure extremes. Its vast distances encouraged speed and stamina. Its scarcity of resources favored intelligence, cooperation, and adaptability. These were the crucibles in which the first dinosaurs were forged. If you could stand on a Triassic plain and watch the horizon, you might not think much of the world before you. You'd see endless sand, scattered patches of green, and the occasional herd of lumbering plant eaters. You might catch a glimpse of something small and swift darting between rocks. A predator no bigger than a dog, chasing insects through the dust. It would be easy to dismiss such creatures as insignificant, but history was already tilting in their favor. They didn't need to dominate today. They only needed to survive tomorrow. And as the Triassic wore on, survival would become their specialty. Pangaea was not just a continent, it was a crucible. It broke the old order and forged the new, and within that relentless heat and hardship, the first whispers of a coming empire stirred. The age of dinosaurs had not yet begun, but its architects were already among us, waiting, adapting, and preparing to claim the world. The world was changing again. Pangaea, that vast supercontinent, still sprawled across the face of the earth, but life within it was stirring in new directions. The deserts still howled, storms still tore across endless plains, but between the rivers and forests, small creatures were beginning to experiment with something extraordinary. This was the dawn of the dinosaurs. They were not yet the giants of legend. No colossal sauropods stretched their necks toward the heavens. No tyrants thundered across the plains. Instead, the first dinosaurs were modest in size, fragile in appearance, and easily overshadowed by the predators and herbivores around them. Yet within their bones lay the blueprint of the future, the traits that would one day make them kings of the earth. In what is now Argentina, around 231 million years ago, the land quivered with volcanic energy. Lava flows carved black scars into the countryside, and earthquakes shook the valleys. Among this violent backdrop roamed some of the earliest true dinosaurs: Herrerasaurus, Eoraptor, and Staurikosaurus. They were small, swift, and armed with weapons of precision. Herrerasaurus, for example, was about the size of a modern wolf, though its body was long and slender, with a tail that acted like a counterweight. Its legs were built for speed and its skull bristled with sharp recurved teeth. Unlike the lumbering predators that had dominated before, Herrerasaurus hunted with agility. It could dart after prey, twisting and lunging, slashing with claws before tearing with its jaws. In a land where survival required quick reflexes, Herrerasaurus was built for the chase. Then there was Eoraptor, even smaller, about 3 feet long and no heavier than a house cat. It had long arms tipped with sharp claws, a lightweight body, and a mouth filled with both serrated and leaf-shaped teeth. That combination suggests Eoraptor might have been an opportunist, feeding on insects, small reptiles, and plants alike. It was adaptable, flexible, a creature willing to take what it could get in a dangerous world. To stand among them would not have inspired awe the way later dinosaurs would. Instead, you might mistake them for quick-footed lizards darting through the brush, or small dogs moving in coordinated packs. Yet what they lacked in size they made up for in design. Their hips were restructured, their legs angled beneath their bodies, allowing for longer strides and greater stamina. Their lungs were more efficient than those of their reptilian neighbours. They were, in short, prototypes of endurance, creatures that could run farther and survive longer than their rivals. Still, they lived in the shadows of giants. The floodplains of Triassic South America hosted massive reptiles like Saurosuchus, a crocodile-like predator that grew over 20 feet long. With armor-plated skin and bone-crushing jaws, it was the nightmare of the riverside. Then there were the enormous herbivores, Dicynodonts, tusked plant-eaters with squat bodies, and rhynchosaurs, broad-headed reptiles that shredded plants with scissor-like jaws. Against such creatures, the first dinosaurs seemed insignificant, mere footnotes in the ecosystem, but insignificance can be an advantage. The giants required vast amounts of food, sprawling territories, and stable conditions. The small dinosaurs required little. They could hide in forests, dart between rocks, and scavenge scraps. They were too minor to threaten the rulers of their time, and so they were largely ignored. In a world prone to catastrophe, being overlooked was a kind of protection. Picture a Triassic evening. The air is heavy with heat, the sky painted orange by distant volcanic eruptions. Along a riverbank, a herd of rhynchosaurs grinds tough vegetation with relentless jaws. The ground trembles as a Saurosuchus stalks nearby, its movements slow, deliberate, filled with menace. Suddenly, from the underbrush, a pair of Herrerasaurus bursts forth, their eyes fixed not on the massive adults, but on a struggling juvenile at the edge of the herd. They strike quickly, claws slashing, teeth tearing, before vanishing into the forest as the larger predators thunder past. It is a hit-and-run world, where survival favors the swift and the clever. These early dinosaurs were not rulers yet, but they were survivors. And in the history of life on Earth, survival has always been the first step toward dominance. Fossil evidence shows that by the mid-Triassic, dinosaurs had already begun to diversify into different forms. Some remained small, agile carnivores. Others experimented with herbivory, developing longer necks and leaf-shaped teeth. Still others grew heavier, with more powerful legs for defense and migration. The blueprint of their future empires, predators, grazers, giants, was already written in miniature. What made them different from everything else was not just their bodies, but their potential. They were flexible in their diets, efficient in their movement, and capable of thriving in climates that would have crippled their competitors. The Earth of the Triassic was still unstable, plagued by eruptions, droughts, and storms, and the dinosaurs' ability to endure gave them an edge that was subtle but decisive. It is easy to imagine these small creatures darting across the volcanic plains, leaving delicate footprints in the ash. Some of those footprints, preserved for millions of years, reveal not just individuals, but groups moving together. Herds of small herbivores, packs of predators. Already, social behavior was taking root. These were not solitary wanderers. They were communities, creatures learning to rely on one another. That cooperation would one day allow them to dominate landscapes as immense herds of sauropods and coordinated packs of raptors. But here, in their first days, it was simply another way to stay alive in a dangerous world. The rise of dinosaurs was not immediate, nor was it guaranteed. They competed with countless other groups for food and space. Some archosaurs grew into massive hunters called Rauisuchians, towering over the first dinosaurs. Others evolved into the ancestors of modern crocodiles, powerful ambush predators that lurked in rivers. Still others became armored plant-eaters with heavy bodies and crushing jaws. At any moment, these rivals could have crushed the fragile beginnings of the dinosaurs. Yet time was on the dinosaurs' side. Their rivals were specialists, creatures adapted for a single niche, dependent on stability. The dinosaurs were generalists, adaptable, capable of shifting strategies as the world demanded. When drought hit, they could scavenge. When forests regrew, they could graze. When prey was scarce, they could band together to hunt. That adaptability was tested often. Volcanic winters blanketed the land in ash, cutting off sunlight and killing plants. Floods tore through river valleys, drowning entire herds. Heat waves scorched the deserts, reducing waterholes to cracked earth. Through it all, the dinosaurs endured, generation after generation, their numbers small but steady, their forms evolving with each challenge. It is tempting to view these early dinosaurs as underdogs, but in truth, they were pioneers. Every step they took was a rehearsal for the future. Their swift legs, their efficient lungs, their flexible diets, these were tools honed in the crucible of the Triassic, tools that would one day carry them to the throne. And slowly, quietly, their influence spread. From South America, they expanded into Africa, then farther north into Europe and Asia. Their footprints appear in what is now Poland, their bones in India, their shadows stretching across the world. They were still rare compared to their rivals, but they were spreading, infiltrating, preparing. One day, catastrophe would come again. A mass extinction at the end of the Triassic would sweep away many of the giants. The Rauisuchians, the large amphibians, the plant-eating reptiles that had dominated for so long. The world would be emptied once more, its rulers toppled. And when that moment came, it would not be the fragile or the inflexible who survived. It would be the small, the adaptable, the overlooked. It would be the dinosaurs. But here, in their first steps, they were still shadows in the undergrowth, whispers on the wind, survivors carving out a place in a hostile land. Their empire was millions of years away, but its foundations were already being laid. The evening sun sets on a Triassic valley. Herrerasaurus crouches low in the grass, eyes fixed on a skittering insect. Eoraptor darts through the ferns, pausing to pluck berries before vanishing into the dark. A Styracosaurus lifts its head to the sky, sniffing the air for danger. They are small, they are vulnerable, but they are alive. And in their survival lies the promise of an age that will shape the Earth like no age before it. The giants of the future are still only dreams, written in the bones of these tiny, unassuming creatures. Yet every heartbeat, every breath, every step brings them closer to destiny. The first steps of the dinosaurs have been taken, and the world will never be the same. The earth trembled. It was not the ordinary shudder of a quake, nor the distant echo of a storm. It was something deeper, something that came from the very bones of the planet itself. The Triassic world, already harsh and unpredictable, was about to face a catastrophe that would redraw the map of life once again. This was the extinction that ended the Triassic, the event that cleared the stage for the true rise of the dinosaurs. It began with fire. The supercontinent of Pangaea was rifting, splitting along fault lines that stretched for thousands of miles. The earth cracked, and from those wounds poured unimaginable volumes of lava. Vast sheets of molten rock spread across the land, drowning valleys, swallowing rivers, and turning forests into ash. The eruptions of what geologists now call the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province released more lava in a few million years than all of human history's volcanoes combined. The air grew heavy with poison. Sulfurous fumes choked the skies, bringing storms of acid rain that stripped leaves from trees and burned the surface of lakes. Carbon dioxide poured out in endless torrents, warming the atmosphere to levels unseen since the Great Dying at the end of the Permian. Oceans lost their oxygen, turning stagnant and suffocating. Coral reefs collapsed. Whole ecosystems dissolved in a matter of decades. Imagine standing on a Triassic shoreline. The sea before you is dark, murky, lifeless. Fish float belly up in the shallows, their gills clogged with ash. The sky above is bruised with red and black, streaked with lightning that splits the smoke. The ground beneath your feet vibrates, a constant reminder that the earth itself is tearing apart. The air smells of sulfur and death. This was no ordinary disaster. This was a planetary upheaval. The rulers of the Triassic, the Rauisuchians, the massive amphibians, the armored reptiles, found themselves trapped. They were specialists, finely tuned to the world that had existed for millions of years. When that world collapsed, so did they. The Rauisuchians, once the undisputed kings of the floodplains, vanished. The great amphibians, survivors of countless ages, disappeared into history. Plant-eating reptiles with scissor jaws and tusks dwindled and died. In the chaos, the smaller, more adaptable creatures found opportunities. Insects thrived in the warmth, buzzing through scorched forests to colonize new growth. Small mammals, no larger than mice, scurried into burrows and waited out the worst. And among the reptiles, the dinosaurs endured. Their endurance was not luck alone. Their physiology gave them the edge. Upright legs allowed them to travel vast distances in search of food and water. Efficient lungs let them survive in low oxygen conditions. Fast metabolisms kept them active when other creatures grew sluggish. They were not the most powerful predators, nor the largest herbivores, but they were flexible. And flexibility is the key to survival when the world itself is collapsing. Picture a valley torn by lava flows. Rivers of molten rock carve fiery paths through the forests. Herds of dicynodonts flee in panic, their heavy bodies too slow to escape the onslaught. Above them, the sky rains ash so thick it turns day into twilight. Yet in the chaos, a small group of dinosaurs darts along the ridge. Their movements are precise, their bodies lean, their steps quick. They vanish into the forest, not unscathed but alive. The extinction dragged on for hundreds of thousands of years. It was not a single blow, but a relentless series of punches. Volcanic winters, followed by scorching hothouses. Floods alternating with droughts. Oceans turning anoxic and toxic in waves. For many species, survival was impossible. For the dinosaurs, each challenge was another chance to prove their resilience. By the end of it, the world was emptied. As much as half of all species alive at the time were gone. Entire lineages disappeared forever. The earth was quieter, emptier, stripped of its dominant rulers. And in that silence, the dinosaurs began to rise. They were no longer fringe players skulking in the shadows. With the Rauisuchians gone, they stepped into the role of apex predators. With the great plant-eaters dead, they spread into the open plains to graze. Their numbers grew, their forms diversified. In the ashes of destruction, opportunity bloomed, and the dinosaurs seized it with both claws. Imagine walking across the world in the first days after the extinction. The forests are thin, the air heavy, the seas strange and barren. Yet here and there, life begins again. Shoots of ferns push through the ash. Small animals scurry among the rocks. And in the distance, you see them. Slender shapes with long tails and upright legs, moving with speed and confidence. They are not giants yet, but they are unmistakable. They are dinosaurs, and the world belongs to them now. The extinction that ended the Triassic was a hinge in history. Before it, dinosaurs were one group among many, minor players on a crowded stage. After it, they were ascendant, free to expand into every niche, every continent, every ecosystem. The old order had been swept away, and in its place rose a dynasty that would last for 160 million years. Volcanoes had cleared the stage, death had written the script, and the dinosaurs stepped forward as the stars. The Triassic had been their crucible, a time of trial and struggle. The extinction was their gateway, the moment that transformed them from survivors into rulers. With the dawn of the Jurassic, their empire would begin in earnest. The Earth, scarred and reshaped by fire, stood ready for its new monarchs. and from that moment on, the age of the dinosaurs was unstoppable. The dawn of the Jurassic was unlike anything the Earth had seen before. The cataclysm at the end of the Triassic had scoured the planet, stripping away entire families of creatures and clearing the ecological slate. When the volcanic ash settled and the world began to heal, the survivors stepped into an open stage, and none seized the opportunity more dramatically than the dinosaurs. What had once been small, nimble creatures scrambling for scraps now began to grow, to spread, to evolve into forms so vast and magnificent that they would forever define the age. The world itself was changing. Pangaea, the colossal supercontinent, was slowly rifting apart. Cracks in the earth stretched and deepened, birthing seas that cut into the landmass and separated it into northern and southern realms, Laurasia and Gondwana. Where the land split, water surged in, bringing with it new coastlines, humid climates, and fertile environments. Rain returned to regions that had once been deserts. Forests thickened, rivers multiplied, and life surged in abundance. It was in this fertile cradle that the dinosaurs began their transformation. Freed from their Triassic rivals, they expanded into every niche available. Some became massive plant eaters, their bodies stretching into titanic forms that dwarfed anything that had walked the earth before. Others became swift predators, built for the chase across lush valleys and open plains. The age of giants had arrived, and the Jurassic would be its great stage. Among the most astonishing of these new giants were the sauropods. Imagine an animal longer than a city bus, taller than a house, and heavier than a convoy of elephants. Their necks stretched skyward like living cranes, sweeping across the canopy to pluck leaves from the tallest conifers. Their tails, like enormous whips, trailed behind them for balance and defense. Their feet pressed craters into the mud with every step. These were creatures of such scale that they reshaped the very landscape they walked upon. The Brachiosaurus, with its long forelimbs and towering neck, could browse treetops 60 feet in the air. Herds of them moved slowly across floodplains, each step deliberate, their massive lungs filling with air as they devoured tons of vegetation every day. Where they passed, forests were trimmed into natural highways. Their mere presence altered ecosystems, shaping plant growth and opening space for smaller creatures to thrive in their wake. Then there was Diplodocus, leaner but even longer, stretching nearly 90 feet from snout to tail. Its whip-like tail could crack through the air with a sound like thunder, a weapon against predators bold enough to approach. Alongside it roamed Apatosaurus, stockier and heavier, with bones thick enough to support the weight of its colossal frame. Together, these sauropods were living fortresses, too immense for most predators to challenge. But where there are giants, there are hunters bold enough to try. The Jurassic world gave rise to formidable predators, the ancestors of later tyrants. Chief among them was Allosaurus, the terror of the Jurassic plains. Standing over 30 feet long, with jaws lined with serrated teeth and arms tipped with deadly claws, Allosaurus was a master of ambush and pursuit. Unlike the colossal predators that would follow in later ages, Allosaurus hunted in packs, coordinating their attacks to bring down prey many times their size. Picture a scene in the Morrison Formation of what is now western North America. A herd of Diplodocus moves slowly through a forest, their tails swaying in unison. In the undergrowth, shadows shift. A pack of Allosaurus stalks them, silent but focused. The predators do not charge recklessly. They wait, circling, watching for weakness. At the edge of the herd, a young Diplodocus lags behind, struggling to keep pace. The Allosaurs strike in a coordinated rush, their claws raking, their teeth tearing. The air fills with roars, the ground shakes with panic, and the balance of life and death plays out in raw, brutal clarity. This was the Jurassic, a world of titanic herbivores and relentless hunters, locked in an arms race of scale and strategy. The sauropods grew ever larger, their size both a shield and a necessity to consume enough food. The predators grew sharper, swifter, more cunning, testing the defenses of their towering prey. The struggle was endless, and it drove both to greater extremes. Yet not all dinosaurs sought dominance through size. Alongside the giants, smaller, nimbler species thrived in the shadows of their colossal cousins. Ornithopods, fleet-footed plant eaters, scurried in herds across the plains, relying on speed and numbers for protection. Their keen senses and agility allowed them to evade predators, and their adaptability made them one of the most enduring groups in dinosaur history. The skies, too, were transforming. From the lineage of archosaurs emerged the first true flyers, the pterosaurs. With wings of stretched membranes supported by elongated fingers, they soared above rivers and forests, swooping down to snatch fish or insects. Some, like Pterodactylus, were small and agile, no larger than a crow. Others, like Rhamphorhynchus, boasted long tails tipped with diamond-shaped veins, stabilizing them as they hunted over lagoons. For the first time in Earth's history, reptiles had conquered the air, opening a new dimension of life. But perhaps the most astonishing innovation of the Jurassic was the first true birds. In the dense forests of what is now Germany, a creature named Archaeopteryx took tentative flight. With feathers spread wide, wings beating awkwardly, it leapt from branch to branch, half reptile, half bird. Its teeth still lined its beak, its claws still clutched branches, its long bony tail still trailed behind. Yet its feathers were unmistakably avian. Archaeopteryx was no master of the skies, but it was a harbinger of things to come, proof that evolution was experimenting with flight, that the descendants of dinosaurs would one day rule not just the land, but the heavens. The Jurassic landscape itself was a wonder to behold. Towering conifers formed the backbone of forests, joined by cycads and ginkgos. Ferns carpeted the ground, creating lush undergrowth. Rivers meandered through broad floodplains, feeding lakes teeming with fish and amphibians. Volcanic ranges smoked in the distance, reminders that the Earth was still restless, still reshaping itself. Herds of sauropods moved like living mountains across this verdant world, while predators prowled in their shadow. Overhead, pterosaurs glided on warm currents of air, casting fleeting shadows over the land. This was not merely an age of survival, it was an age of expansion, of grandeur, of experimentation. The dinosaurs, once fragile survivors of extinction, had become the undisputed rulers of Earth. They were no longer confined to scattered niches, but spread across every continent, adapting to every environment. From swamp to forest, plain to mountain, they reigned supreme, and yet their dominance was not absolute. The oceans teemed with their own giants, ichthyosaurs, dolphin-shaped reptiles that sped through the seas with the grace of modern whales, plesiosaurs, with long necks and paddle-like limbs that propelled them silently beneath the waves. These marine reptiles ruled the waters as thoroughly as the dinosaurs ruled the land. In the seas of the Jurassic, the drama of predator and prey played out with equal ferocity, as schools of fish scattered before the jaws of marine hunters. The Jurassic was an age of abundance, but it was also an age of tension. Every adaptation brought new challenges, every advantage invited countermeasures. The arms race of evolution was relentless, driving creatures toward ever greater extremes. The sauropods' massive size demanded constant feeding, binding them to migration routes that stretched for miles. The predators' reliance on teamwork and cunning required coordination, intelligence, and risk. Even the flyers of the sky faced constant peril, for every glide carried the danger of predators waiting below. And yet, through it all, life thrived. The world was vibrant, teeming, alive with possibility. The dinosaurs had risen from obscurity to claim the crown, and the Jurassic was their coronation. In every forest, on every plain, their footsteps echoed as a declaration. This is our age. As the Jurassic marched forward, the blueprint of the dinosaur empire grew clearer. The sauropods perfected the art of gigantism, pushing the limits of size and endurance. The predators refined their strategies, honing their claws and teeth against the armor of scale and bone. The skies filled with wings, the seas with leviathans, the land with herds beyond counting. The earth itself seemed to pulse with the rhythm of their reign. But even in this golden age, the seeds of change were stirring. Evolution never rests, and new lineages were waiting in the shadows. The first stegosaurs, with their plated backs and spiked tails, lumbered across the plains. The earliest ankylosaurs, armored like living tanks, tested the patience of predators. Ornithopods refined their ability to graze in herds, a strategy that would one day make them the most successful plant eaters of all. The Jurassic was not the end of the story. It was the prologue to even greater dramas, to new battles and new giants yet to come. But it was here, in the lush forests and fertile plains of the Jurassic, that the dinosaurs truly claimed their crown. They had survived catastrophe, endured obscurity, and now stood unchallenged at the pinnacle of life on Earth. The Triassic had forged them, the Extinction had freed them, and the Jurassic revealed their full glory. This was the age of giants, the world of living mountains and relentless hunters, of soaring wings and whispering forests. It was an age where the earth itself seemed to bow beneath their weight, and the future stretched wide before them. The curtain had risen, the stage was set, and the performance was only beginning. The dinosaurs had become rulers, and their empire was only just taking shape. The transition from the Jurassic into the Cretaceous was like the turning of a grand page in the Earth's storybook. The world had already been reshaped by rifting continents, rising seas, and restless volcanoes. Now, as the Cretaceous dawned around 145 million years ago, the planet entered an era that was both familiar and astonishingly new. It was an age when the Earth itself seemed to bloom, when plants experimented with new strategies, and when dinosaurs evolved to meet the changing stage with dazzling diversity. By this time, Pangaea was long gone. The single colossal landmass had fractured into multiple continents, drifting apart on slow but unstoppable tectonic currents. Laurasia lay to the north, Gondwana to the south, and between them stretched widening oceans. This rearrangement created coastlines by the thousands, shallow seas that reached far into the continents, and climates far more varied than in the age of the Jurassic giants. Where once there had been endless plains, now there were islands, peninsulas, and inland seas. The Earth was more fragmented, more diverse, and so too were the creatures that lived upon it. The land was greening in ways never seen before. For most of Earth's history, plants had relied on spores and wind to reproduce. But during the Cretaceous, something revolutionary took hold. The rise of flowering plants, or angiosperms. These plants carried blooms designed not just for reproduction, but for attraction. They lured insects with bright petals and sweet nectar, forging partnerships that would forever alter the balance of ecosystems. From magnolia-like blossoms to the ancestors of grasses, flowering plants spread like wildfire across the continents. Their arrival reshaped diets, habitats, and the future of life itself. Dinosaurs, ever adaptable, responded in kind. Herbivores evolved jaws and teeth suited to grinding tougher vegetation. New lineages of plant eaters flourished, their bodies built to exploit this botanical revolution. The hadrosaurs, often called duck-billed dinosaurs, became some of the most successful herbivores of the Cretaceous. With their flat snouts and batteries of hundreds of teeth, they could chew plants efficiently, turning tough leaves and flowering stalks into nourishment. Hadrosaurs lived in herds that numbered in the hundreds, moving across floodplains in great migrations. Their calls echoed like music over the land, honking and bellowing as they communicated across long distances. Alongside them marched the ceratopsians, perhaps the most iconic of all Cretaceous herbivores. With bony frills extending from their skulls and horns sprouting from their brows and noses, they looked like living fortresses. Triceratops, with its massive frill and 3 forward-pointing horns, stood as a symbol of this era. These creatures were more than armored grazers. They were highly social, moving in protective groups, their horns both tools for defense and weapons in displays of dominance. The arms race between predator and prey intensified. The Cretaceous produced carnivores of staggering size and ferocity. Chief among them was Tyrannosaurus rex, the undisputed apex predator of late Cretaceous North America. Reaching 40 feet in length, with jaws that could deliver the most powerful bite of any land animal in history, T. rex was the culmination of millions of years of evolution. It stalked herds of hadrosaurs and ceratopsians, its massive skull swinging like a wrecking ball, its teeth shaped not just to cut, but to crush bone. Its tiny arms were ridiculed in modern imagination, but they were strong enough to hold prey close as its jaws did the killing. T. rex was not merely a hunter. It was an icon of power, a predator whose shadow looms across time. Yet T. rex was only one star in a cast of giants. In South America roamed Giganotosaurus, nearly as long as T. rex and equally formidable. In Africa, the rivers belonged to Spinosaurus, a bizarre predator with a sail on its back and jaws shaped like a crocodile's. Spinosaurus may have been semi-aquatic, slipping into rivers to snatch fish the size of cars. Each continent produced its own champion, a reminder that the age of dinosaurs was not uniform, but local, shaped by the continent's drift and the environments they created. The Cretaceous skies, too, were filled with wonders. Pterosaurs reached their peak, producing giants like Quetzalcoatlus, with wingspans stretching over 30 feet, soaring over inland seas in search of prey. Birds, descended from small feathered dinosaurs, diversified into countless forms. Some resembled modern seabirds, diving into waters for fish. Others perched in forests, flitting among branches, spreading seeds and pollinating flowers. The experiment that had begun with Archaeopteryx in the Jurassic now blossomed into full dominance of the skies. On the ground, smaller theropods experimented with feathers, colours, and forms that hint at the avian world to come. Velociraptors, though smaller than their Hollywood fame suggests, were swift, clever hunters, often covered in feathers that shimmered in the sunlight. They hunted in packs, darting and striking with precision. Microraptors, with feathers on both their arms and legs, glided between trees like living kites. These creatures blurred the line between bird and dinosaur, proof that evolution was not a ladder, but a branching tree of endless possibilities. The Cretaceous world itself was dynamic, its environments ever-shifting. In North America, the Western Interior Seaway split the continent in two, a shallow ocean teeming with mosasaurs, marine reptiles with jaws filled with dagger-like teeth. These leviathans cruised the depths, preying on fish, ammonites, and even other reptiles. The seas were no safer than the land, for here too, predators ruled with merciless efficiency. Forests flourished along the coasts of these inland seas. Insects buzzed among flowers, their partnership with plants accelerating the spread of angiosperms. Mammals, still small and nocturnal, crept through the undergrowth, nibbling seeds and insects, waiting for their time to come. Though overshadowed by dinosaurs, they were persistent, adapting in the quiet corners of the world. As the Cretaceous progressed, the continents drifted ever farther apart. Isolation bred diversity. Dinosaurs in Asia evolved elaborate crests and frills, some for defense, others for display. In North America, hadrosaurs developed hollow crests that acted like resonating chambers, amplifying their calls into deep, haunting bellows. In Africa, spined and armored species adapted to arid climates. The variety was staggering, a tapestry of forms spread across every continent, each adapting to the challenges of its own land. The earth itself reflected this abundance. Flowering plants spread rapidly, creating colourful landscapes unlike any the planet had seen before. Fields of blooms attracted bees and beetles, forging the beginnings of ecosystems that still thrive today. Grasses, though primitive, appeared near the end of the Cretaceous, hinting at the future dominance of savannas and plains. The world was not just alive, it was vibrant, buzzing, humming, blooming with energy. But beneath this abundance lay tension. Evolutionary success carries a cost, and the arms race of the Cretaceous was a double-edged sword. Herbivores required vast herds to consume enough food, and predators needed immense territories to sustain themselves. Ecosystems grew complex but also fragile, vulnerable to disruption. The very abundance of the age was balanced on a knife's edge. And then, as always, time marched on toward change. The Cretaceous would end not in a whimper, but in a cataclysm. The age of bloom was also the age of impending doom. The Earth's skies and seas were restless, its tectonic plates drifting, its volcanoes simmering. The dinosaurs, in all their diversity and grandeur, seemed unassailable. Yet their reign, like all empires, was finite. For now, though, the Cretaceous was their masterpiece. From the towering giants of the plains to the feathered hunters of the forests, from the horned fortresses of the herds to the colossal predators that stalked them, the world belonged to the dinosaurs. Flowers bloomed beneath their feet, insects whirred in their shadows, and birds took to the skies above them. It was a planet at its most vibrant, its most alive, its most spectacular. The Cretaceous was not simply another chapter in Earth's history. It was the crescendo, the height of the dinosaur empire, the flowering of life itself. The world had bloomed, and in that bloom, the dinosaurs carved their glory into the very bones of time. The Cretaceous was a world of giants, and not just among the plant-eaters. While hadrosaurs grazed in great herds and ceratopsians clashed horns on the plains, predators too were rising to unmatched heights. Across every continent, evolution forged monsters designed to stalk, ambush, and kill the largest prey the Earth had ever seen. It was a global arena, each landmass producing its own champions, each predator fine-tuned to dominate its environment. This was the age of the apex hunters, kings who reigned not by numbers, but by sheer, overwhelming power. On the floodplains of what is now North America, The throne belonged to Tyrannosaurus rex. Its very name means tyrant lizard king, and never has a title been more fitting. At over 40 feet in length and weighing up to 9 tons, T-Rex was a predator built on extremes. Its skull was a crushing machine, nearly 5 feet long, with teeth thick as railroad spikes. Unlike the slender blades of earlier predators, these teeth were designed to pulverize bone, to shatter the defenses of even the most heavily armored prey. With a single bite, T-Rex could deliver a force greater than any other land animal in history. Imagine standing in the grasslands of late Cretaceous Montana. A herd of Triceratops grazes peacefully, their frills glinting in the sun. The ground suddenly vibrates. A shadow emerges at the tree line. Tyrannosaurus rex steps into view, its amber eyes locked on the herd. Its arms are comically small, but its legs are pillars of muscle, driving it forward with surprising speed. It charges, jaws wide, and the air fills with the thunder of pursuit. The herd bolts, but one straggler stumbles. T-Rex closes in, its teeth sinking deep, snapping bone like twigs. Blood sprays, the earth shakes, and the Tyrant King claims its prize. But the reign of tyrants was not confined to North America. In South America, another predator rivaled the size and power of T-Rex, Giganotosaurus carolini. Slightly longer but more lightly built, Giganotosaurus was a blade compared to the hammer of T-Rex. Its teeth were sharper, its skull narrower, built not for crushing, but for slicing. It hunted the massive sauropods that still roamed the southern continents, using its size and speed to slash and weaken before delivering the killing blow. Imagine a creature 43 feet long, racing alongside a titanosaur, its jaws snapping at flanks and tails, each bite draining strength until the giant fell Africa. 2 had its champion, one stranger than all the rest. Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, the spined lizard, was unlike any predator before or since. It stretched nearly 50 feet from nose to tail, making it the longest known carnivorous dinosaur. Its back bore a sail of elongated spines, rising over 6 feet tall, a structure that may have been used for display, thermoregulation, or intimidation. But what truly set Spinosaurus apart was its lifestyle. Its long, narrow jaws bristled with conical teeth, perfect for gripping slippery prey. Its bones were dense, helping it to submerge, and its limbs suggested a life spent partly in the water. Spinosaurus was the first known semi-aquatic dinosaur, a hunter that ruled not just the land but the rivers and deltas of Cretaceous Africa. Picture it wading through a mangrove swamp, jaws snapping shut on a fish the size of a shark, its sail casting a monstrous reflection across the water. Asia, too, bore predators of legend. In Mongolia's deserts prowled the Tarbosaurus, close kin to T-Rex but slimmer, adapted to hunt the hadrosaurs and armored ankylosaurs of its land. In the same region, smaller but no less dangerous packs of velociraptors darted through dunes and canyons. Feathered, swift, and intelligent, velociraptors hunted cooperatively, their sickle-shaped claws flashing in coordinated attacks. They lacked the size of the giants, but their cunning made them apex predators in their own right, rulers of the niches the larger hunters could not reach. Each continent's champion reflected the battles it fought. In North America, where ceratopsians and hadrosaurs dominated, T-Rex evolved into a bone-crushing powerhouse. In South America, where sauropods still towered, Giganotosaurus became a slicing predator, designed to bleed giants dry. In Africa, Spinosaurus adapted to aquatic prey, straddling the boundary between land and water. In Asia, cunning and speed ruled, giving rise to raptors that outsmarted and outmaneuvered. This global diversity was more than spectacle. It was survival written in flesh and bone. Each predator was a solution to the challenges of its ecosystem, a living answer to the defenses of its prey. Triceratops bore horns, T-Rex bore teeth that could break them. Sauropods grew colossal. Giganotosaurus evolved to run them down. Rivers teemed with fish. Spinosaurus transformed into a crocodile-like fisher. Evolution was not just random. It was a dialogue, a duel, each side pushing the other to greater extremes. The strategies of these hunters were as varied as their forms. T-Rex may have relied on ambush, bursting from cover in explosive sprints to overwhelm its prey. Giganotosaurus likely hunted in groups, coordinating to bring down sauropods too massive for a single predator. Spinosaurus, with its semi-aquatic nature, could stalk both fish and unwary land animals at riverbanks. Velociraptors, nimble and intelligent, likely used pack tactics to separate and exhaust their victims before striking. Each predator was more than muscle and tooth. It was strategy incarnate. The apex predators shaped not only their prey, but their entire ecosystems. Herds of herbivores migrated to avoid hunting grounds. Rivers shifted as giants waded through them. Forests opened where sauropods fed, and flowers spread seeds carried in the guts of grazers. Predators influenced all of this, keeping populations in balance, driving migrations, forcing adaptations. Without them, the Cretaceous world would not have been the vibrant, dynamic stage it was. Yet even kings faced challenges. Life at the top was precarious, demanding constant energy and opportunity. A failed hunt could mean starvation. Injury in battle could mean death. Apex predators lived on a knife's edge, their power balanced by the risk of every pursuit. For all their strength, they were not invincible. Picture a storm over a late Cretaceous floodplain. A herd of hadrosaurs bunches together, honking in alarm. A T-Rex approaches, but this time the herd stands firm, adults shielding their young. The predator lunges, teeth flashing, but a massive Triceratops counters, horns thrusting forward. The clash is thunderous. The tyrant king recoils, jaws bloodied by a horn strike. It retreats, limping, defeated. Even the greatest hunters sometimes failed. Their reign never guaranteed. Still, their legacy was undeniable. The apex predators of the Cretaceous embodied evolution's most ruthless creativity. They were killers honed by millions of years of trial, error, and survival. Their bones tell stories of dominance, of ecosystems balanced on their presence. Without them, the age of dinosaurs would have lacked its fiercest edge, its sharpest drama. And yet, like all rulers, their time would one day end. For now, they reigned supreme, each continent boasting its champion, each predator carving its dominion into the earth itself. But beyond the horizon loomed a fate none could escape, a cataclysm that cared nothing for strength, size, or supremacy. The kings of the hunt had their moment in the sun, their roars echoing across forests, plains, and rivers. They were the tyrants of their time, the sharpened blades of evolution, the rulers of flesh and bone. Their reign was brutal, magnificent, and absolute, and in the silence that would one day follow, their bones would whisper of an age when the world belonged to them. The Cretaceous was not only the age of giants that shook the ground beneath their feet, it was also the age when the air itself became a new frontier. The sky, once empty of vertebrate life, had become a battleground of wings and feathers, where predators glided silently over the land and new pioneers tested the limits of flight. This chapter belongs to those creatures who stretched their arms into wings and claimed the heavens. The pterosaurs, the feathered dinosaurs, and the earliest true birds. Their story is one of daring innovation, an evolutionary gamble that transformed the face of life forever. From the Triassic onward, pterosaurs had held the skies, but in the Cretaceous, they reached their zenith. No longer small experimenters, they grew into titans of the air, filling every niche from insect-catching dart flyers to monstrous giants that shadowed the land below. Picture Quetzalcoatlus, a pterosaur with wings stretching 36 feet from tip to tip. It soared above the Cretaceous plains of what is now Texas, scanning for carrion, small dinosaurs, or perhaps fish in shallow rivers. Standing on the ground, it would have been as tall as a giraffe, stalking across floodplains with a beak sharp enough to impale prey. It was not a bird, but in sheer size and majesty, it dwarfed every bird that has ever lived. Other pterosaurs specialized in their own ways. Pteranodon, with its long backward-pointing crest, ruled the coastal skies, diving for fish in the western interior seaway. Nyctosaurus, sporting antler-like crests, may have used them for display in aerial dances. Some species developed teeth like sieves to filter plankton, while others became long-beaked spearfishers. The diversity of pterosaurs was staggering, a kaleidoscope of forms that filled the air with shadows. Yet in the shadows of these masters, something extraordinary was unfolding. Among the small, feathered theropods of the forests, evolution was conducting experiments of its own. Feathers had long been present, first as insulation, then as display. By the Cretaceous, feathers had become more than decoration. They had become tools for flight. In the forests of northeastern China, preserved in volcanic ash, fossils tell the tale of these pioneers. Microraptor, no larger than a crow, bore feathers not just on its arms but on its legs as well. With 4 wings, it glided from tree to tree, an awkward but effective flyer. Its glossy black feathers shimmered like a raven's, and its sickle-shaped claws were reminders of its predatory nature. Microraptor blurred the boundary between dinosaur and bird, gliding like a kite through the canopy as it hunted small prey below. Then there were the dromaeosaurs, cousins of Velociraptor, many of them feathered in full plumage. These were hunters on the ground but possessed the anatomy that suggested aerodynamic potential. Long arms, lightweight bones, feathers capable of catching air. Though most could not fly, they represented the bridge, the evolutionary stepping stones from earthbound predator to skyborne bird. Among them, the first true birds began to emerge. Archaeopteryx, from the late Jurassic, had been a beginning, but the Cretaceous brought refinement. Birds diversified, developing shorter tails, toothless beaks, and stronger flight muscles. Some resembled seabirds, skimming waves in pursuit of fish. Others were forest dwellers, flitting through branches, feeding on seeds, fruits, or insects. Each adaptation brought them closer to the modern forms we recognize today. Flight was more than a means of escape. It was a revolution. To fly was to transcend the limits of land, to colonize niches unavailable to walkers and runners. A bird could evade predators by taking to the air, migrate to new feeding grounds, or exploit food sources unreachable to others. Insects buzzing around flowering plants became meals for nimble flyers. Seeds and nectar offered rewards for those agile enough to reach them. The sky was not just a refuge. It was a kingdom waiting to be claimed. The relationship between birds and plants grew symbiotic. As flowering plants spread, birds became agents of pollination and dispersal, carrying seeds in their guts, spreading pollen on their feathers. Evolution created alliances. Plants rewarded birds with food. Birds carried their legacy across continents. It was a partnership that reshaped landscapes, ensuring both would thrive together into the future. Still, feathers were not just about flight. They became canvases of display used in courtship, intimidation, and communication. Imagine a Cretaceous clearing where two male-feathered dinosaurs face each other. Their plumage flares in vivid colors, wings spread wide, tails fanned in brilliant displays. The ritual is not about combat but about spectacle, a dance of feathers meant to win mates and assert dominance. Evolution had given them paint and canvas, and they used both to write their stories in color across the ancient forests. While birds were rising, the pterosaurs remained dominant in the skies. Yet they too faced pressures. As birds diversified and grew more efficient, smaller pterosaur species began to vanish, unable to compete. Only the giants held their ground, filling ecological roles that birds could not. By the end of the Cretaceous, the skies belonged to two very different lineages: the ancient rulers, the pterosaurs, and the upstart heirs, the birds. The drama of feathers and flight was not limited to the forests. Along riverbanks, feathered raptors hunted in packs, their plumage bristling as they coordinated attacks. On coastal cliffs, seabird-like creatures nested in colonies, their cries filling the air as they wheeled overhead. Inland, Microraptor glided silently through moonlit canopies, hunting frogs and lizards with stealth. The sky was alive, filled with shapes, shadows, and color, a vibrant dimension of the dinosaur empire. Picture standing in a Cretaceous meadow. Above, a Quetzalcoatlus glides silently, its shadow passing like a cloud. In the trees nearby, a flock of primitive birds bursts into flight, their wings flashing with iridescence. From the undergrowth, a feathered velociraptor watches, its plumage rippling in the wind. You would hear the buzzing of insects, the calls of birds, the beating of wings. A world as noisy and vibrant as any modern forest. The earth, once ruled by silence and scale, now thrummed with song and flight. The evolution of flight was not just a biological story, it was a philosophical one. It was proof that nature does not settle, that every limit is a challenge, every boundary an invitation. Dinosaurs had conquered the land, marine reptiles had mastered the seas, and now their kin had leapt into the air. Life was not content with walking. It wanted to soar. As the Cretaceous wore on, birds refined their dominance. Some developed beaks specialized for seeds, others for insects, still others for fish. The variety was staggering. Each adaptation a new note in the symphony of the skies. The pterosaurs, once untouchable, dwindled, their diversity shrinking as birds expanded. By the time the Great Extinction came at the end of the Cretaceous, only the largest pterosaurs remained, while birds had already secured their foothold as the survivors of the skies. The story of feathers and flight is not just about evolution, but about endurance. When the asteroid struck and the age of dinosaurs ended, the giants fell, but the birds lived on. Their wings carried them through fire and darkness, through famine and ash, into the new world of the Paleogene. They are the legacy of that Cretaceous sky, the descendants of creatures who dared to leap into the air and never came down. Every bird you see today, from a sparrow to an eagle, carries the memory of that age. Their feathers are echoes of velociraptors, their wings the inheritance of Microraptor, their songs the voices of forests that bloomed in the shadows of dinosaurs. To watch a bird in flight is to glimpse the triumph of that gamble, the risk that became a revolution. The Cretaceous sky was never empty again. It was filled with dancers, hunters, and giants, with wings that carved arcs through the clouds and feathers that shimmered in the sun. It was a realm of color and motion, of innovation and endurance. And though the dinosaurs of the land would fall, the rulers of the sky would never surrender their crown. The age of feathers had begun, and it would never end. The Cretaceous had been a time of abundance. Forests of flowering plants spread across continents. Insects buzzed in dazzling diversity. Birds filled the skies, and herds of hadrosaurs, ceratopsians, and sauropods marched across the plains. Apex predators like Tyrannosaurus rex and Spinosaurus ruled with unmatched ferocity. For millions of years, it seemed as though the reign of dinosaurs would last forever. But all empires fall, and the twilight of the dinosaurs was coming. By 67 million years ago, the world was vibrant yet fragile. Ecosystems thrived in a delicate balance, with every niche filled by specialists. Herds of Triceratops grazed on flowering plants, while hadrosaurs raised their crests to call across floodplains. Ankylosaurs lumbered through forests armored in bone, their clubs ready to shatter the legs of attackers. In the oceans, mosasaurs and plesiosaurs hunted with ruthless efficiency. Pterosaurs still glided on coastal winds, and birds flitted through forests. It was an age of splendor, but beneath the surface, the earth stirred uneasily. Volcanoes in what is now India unleashed fury. The Deccan Traps, one of the largest volcanic outpourings in history, spewed rivers of lava across thousands of square miles. With the lava came gases, sulfur that darkened the skies with acid rain, carbon dioxide that warmed the planet. The climate grew unstable, oscillating between searing heat and chilling cold. Crops of vegetation faltered, food webs strained. Life endured, but the foundations were weakening. Still, the dinosaurs persisted. They had survived calamities before, weathered droughts, floods, and even mass extinctions. To a Triceratops grazing on ferns, or a T-Rex prowling through forests, the changes may have seemed like passing storms. The rhythms of life continued. Young hatched from eggs, herds migrated, predators hunted. The empire of dinosaurs still roared. Then came the moment that ended it all. 66 million years ago, a rock from space, 6 miles wide, hurtled toward Earth at 20 kilometers per second. It had traveled across the solar system for millions of years, indifferent and unseen, until gravity drew it into collision with a vibrant planet. In a single instant, the fate of the dinosaurs was sealed. The asteroid struck near what is now the Yucatan Peninsula, carving the Chicxulub crater more than 110 miles wide. The impact released energy greater than billions of nuclear bombs. The sky lit with a blinding flash. Forests thousands of miles away burst into flames. A shockwave circled the globe, flattening everything in its path. Tsunamis hundreds of feet high crashed into coastlines, carrying debris deep inland. Within minutes, the atmosphere filled with molten rock and vaporized earth. Pebbles of glass rained down, igniting wildfires on a planetary scale. Smoke and ash rose into the stratosphere, forming a thick shroud that blocked out the sun. Day turned to night, and the world plunged into a darkness that lasted for months. Plants withered without sunlight. Temperatures plummeted, creating a nuclear winter. Herbivores starved as vegetation died, and carnivores soon followed. Oceans cooled and acidified, killing plankton at the base of the food chain. Ecosystems collapsed one by one, unable to withstand the chain reaction of famine and cold. For the dinosaurs, it was the end. The great herds of hadrosaurs fell silent. The mighty Triceratops lay lifeless in the ash. Tyrannosaurus, the tyrant king, roared for the last time before hunger overtook it. Spinosaurus vanished from the rivers of Africa. Giganotosaurus no longer prowled South America. The giants were gone, Their reign ended not by rivals, but by the blind strike of fate. Yet not all was lost. Some creatures endured. Crocodiles, resilient and adaptable, slipped into rivers and waited out the dark. Mammals, small and resourceful, huddled in burrows, feeding on seeds and insects. Most importantly, birds, the feathered descendants of small theropods, survived. Their lightweight bodies, diverse diets, and ability to fly carried them through the apocalypse. When the skies cleared and the sun returned, it was birds that lifted the torch of the dinosaur legacy. Picture the world after the impact. Forests lie in ashes, skies are grey, oceans murky, silence reigns where once the earth thundered with footsteps of giants. But here and there, life persists. A small mammal scurries from its burrow, searching for seeds hidden in the soil. A bird takes flight, its wings beating weakly but surely against the fading darkness. In their persistence lies the promise of renewal. The twilight of the dinosaurs was a tragedy of unimaginable scale, but it was also a turning point. Their fall cleared the way for mammals to rise, for birds to diversify, for new forms of life to take the stage. The world did not end, it changed. The dinosaurs' reign had lasted for more than 160 million years, longer than any mammalian empire has yet endured. Their twilight was swift, but their legacy eternal. The story of their end is not just about destruction. It is about the fragility of life, the randomness of fate, and the resilience of survivors. It reminds us that dominance is never permanent, that even the mightiest can fall. And it reminds us that from every twilight comes a dawn. The Cretaceous closed with silence, but in that silence lay the seeds of the future. Birds carried the bloodline of dinosaurs into new skies. Mammals began their slow ascent toward dominance. And the Earth, scarred but alive, turned its page to a new chapter. For the dinosaurs, twilight had come. But in every sparrow, every eagle, every penguin, their story still soars. The fires had burned out. The skies, once choked with ash and smoke, slowly cleared. The oceans calmed, though their depths remained forever changed. Forests regrew from the blackened soil, fragile shoots pushing through layers of ash and soot. The great dinosaurs, those titans of the Mesozoic, were gone. Their bones lay buried in the mud and rock, silent monuments to an age of wonder and terror. But their story was not over. Their legacy had not ended with the crash of an asteroid. In truth, the dinosaurs never truly died. They live on, not as giants but as survivors, as whispers in the DNA of creatures that still share our skies. In the days and months after the impact, the Earth was a graveyard. Carcasses of giants rotted in the fields, while rivers carried bones downstream. Insects swarmed over decaying flesh, feasting on what was left of empires that had ruled for 160 million years. Yet life is resilient. The survivors, small mammals, amphibians, reptiles, and most crucially birds, endured the cold and famine. They huddled in burrows, found refuge in forests, scavenged on what remained. Step by step, season by season, life began again. Birds were the most remarkable of these survivors. Descended from small feathered theropods, they carried the essence of dinosaurs into the new age. Their wings, once tools of survival in the Cretaceous forests, now became the means by which they spread across the altered world. They flew above ruined landscapes seeking food, shelter, and safety. They sang, tentative at first, in a world that had lost its greatest voices. Each note was a declaration. The age of dinosaurs was not truly gone. When you watch a hawk circling above a field today, you are seeing the shadow of a velociraptor. Its keen eyes, its talons ready to strike, its speed and precision, all are echoes of its dinosaurian ancestors. When a sparrow hops across a branch, it carries the legacy of creatures that once thundered across continents. The fragile flutter of wings outside your window is a direct line to the Jurassic canopy and the Cretaceous plains. But the legacy of dinosaurs is not confined to birds alone. Their bones tell a story written in stone, one that humans have only recently learned to read. Fossils unearthed in deserts, quarries, and cliffs reveal creatures of such size and power that they defy imagination. A single footprint pressed into mud more than 100 million years ago speaks across time of weight, motion, and life. A skeleton, painstakingly reassembled, becomes a window into a lost world. Each discovery reminds us that the ground beneath our feet is a library, and the dinosaurs are its greatest authors. Dinosaurs also left their mark on the Earth itself. The ecosystems they shaped during their reign influenced the evolution of plants, insects, and mammals. Their grazing patterns altered forests and floodplains. Their predation kept populations in check. Their very size created pressures that drove evolution in others. Even in their extinction, they paved the way for what came next. Without their fall, mammals might never have risen to dominance. Without their twilight, humanity might never have emerged. In this sense, the dinosaurs are not simply relics of the past. They are architects of the present. Every flower, every bird, every mammal is in some way a product of their reign and their fall. To live in the world today is to live in the aftermath of dinosaurs. Their cultural legacy is just as profound. From the moment humans first uncovered giant bones and puzzled over their origins, dinosaurs have captured our imagination. To early peoples, they were dragons, monsters from myth. To scientists, they became clues to Earth's deep history. And to children everywhere, they are creatures of wonder, fuel for dreams of giant roars and endless adventures. Dinosaurs bridge science and imagination, reality and myth, past and present. But perhaps their greatest legacy is a lesson, a reminder of the fragility of life and the inevitability of change. Dinosaurs were masters of the Earth for over 160 million years, longer than any mammalian empire has lasted, longer than humanity has even existed by far. They seemed unassailable, invincible. Yet in a single day, their rule ended. It was not weakness or failure that felled them, but chance, the blind strike of a rock from space. Their story tells us that no kingdom lasts forever, no power is eternal, but it also tells us that life endures, adapts, and finds new ways to thrive. Walk through a modern forest, and their echoes are everywhere. A woodpecker hammering on bark recalls the persistence of small feathered hunters. A crow's intelligence mirrors the cunning of raptors. Even the way birds gather in flocks, honking and calling, is a reflection of the herding dinosaurs that once shook the ground in unison. The world around us is not separate from theirs. It is a continuation. Consider, too, the whales in the oceans, the elephants on the plains, the towering redwoods in the forests. None are dinosaurs, but all occupy the spaces left behind by them. The vacuum created by their extinction allowed mammals to rise, to diversify, to claim the Earth. Humanity's very existence is part of their story. Without the asteroid, without their fall, we would not be here to tell their tale. Dinosaurs live on in science, in the museums where their skeletons stand tall, in the textbooks that describe their anatomy, in the debates of paleontologists piecing together their lives. But they also live on in our culture, our art, our films, and our dreams. From the terrifying roars of Tyrannosaurus in movies to the gentle wonder of long-necked sauropods in children's books, dinosaurs are woven into our imagination. They remind us of both the majesty and the fragility of life, and above all, they live on in birds. Every gull that cries above the ocean, every robin that sings at dawn, every eagle that soars over mountains carries their bloodline. The age of dinosaurs did not end. It changed its form. The thunder of their footsteps may be gone, but the flutter of wings is eternal. Stand outside on a clear morning. Listen to the chorus of birdsong. That music is the voice of the dinosaurs, still echoing after 66 million years. Look up at the sky and watch a hawk glide effortlessly, wings outstretched, eyes sharp. That flight is the triumph of dinosaurs, their survival against all odds. The age of dinosaurs is not past, it is all around us. The immortal legacy of dinosaurs is not measured in bones or in names, but in survival, in influence, in inspiration. They ruled the earth, they shaped its history, they fell in fire, and yet they endure. They are not gone, they are here, in every bird, in every fossil, in every dream. The curtain fell on their empire, but the story did not end. Dinosaurs live on, not as giants that shake the ground, but as creatures that touch the sky. Their age is eternal, their legacy immortal. The dinosaurs might have vanished from the living world 66 million years ago, but their story did not stay buried forever. Hidden beneath layers of stone and soil, their bones waited patiently, preserved in silence, until curious hands uncovered them. The story of how humanity discovered dinosaurs is as dramatic as their reign itself. A tale of wonder, rivalry, imagination, and science, stretching from ancient myths to modern laboratories. In this chapter, we explore not the lives of dinosaurs themselves, but the journey of how we came to know them, how fossils turned into history, and how history turned into the powerful cultural force we see today. Long before science gave them a name, people stumbled across the bones of giants. In China, strange fossilized bones were ground into powders and used as medicine, called dragon bones. Shepherds in Europe unearthed massive femurs, believing them to be the relics of giants slain in biblical times. In Greece, fossil skulls inspired myths of griffins and monsters. Everywhere, ancient people found fossils. They wove them into the tapestry of their myths, imagining dragons, titans, or gods. The creatures were too large to be anything but supernatural. The earth, to them, whispered stories through the stones, though no one yet understood the language. It was not until the Age of Enlightenment that people began to see these bones differently. In the 17th and 18th centuries, naturalists collected fossils with growing curiosity. Scholars like Robert Plot described giant bones found in England, speculating they might belong to elephants or other massive beasts brought by the Romans. Others argued they were remnants of creatures lost in Noah's flood. Still, the puzzle remained unsolved. What kind of creatures could leave behind bones so massive, so strange? The 19th century brought clarity and gave birth to the science of paleontology. In 1824, William Buckland formally described Megalosaurus, the first dinosaur to be scientifically named. 2 years later, Gideon Mantell identified Iguanodon, based on teeth that resembled those of modern iguanas, though vastly larger. Soon after came Hylaeosaurus, an armored reptile with spines. These three became the cornerstones of a new realization. The Earth had once been home to creatures unlike anything alive today. It was Richard Owen, a brilliant and ambitious anatomist who in 1842 coined the term dinosauria, meaning terrible lizards. With that, dinosaurs had a name and an identity. They were no longer dragons or curiosities. They were a distinct group of ancient reptiles, rulers of a vanished world. Owen's vision reached the public in spectacular form at the Crystal Palace exhibition in 1854, where life-size sculptures of Iguanodon and Megalosaurus were unveiled. Visitors flocked to see them, marveling at these monstrous creatures brought back from stone. The dinosaurs had entered human imagination not just as fossils, but as living icons. But discovery bred rivalry. Nowhere was this more evident than in the United States during the late 19th century, in what became known as the Bone Wars. Two paleontologists, Othniel Charles Marsh and Edward Drinker Cope, engaged in a bitter, decades-long feud, racing to outdo each other in discovering and naming new dinosaurs. They bribed workers, spied on camps, sabotaged excavations, and even destroyed fossils to prevent their rival from claiming them. Out of this chaos came an explosion of discoveries. Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, Diplodocus, Apatosaurus, creatures that would become legends. Though their rivalry was destructive, it fueled a golden age of paleontology, filling museums with skeletons and the public with awe. As the 20th century dawned, dinosaurs moved from myth and spectacle into the realm of science. New methods of excavation revealed complete skeletons. Advances in geology placed them firmly in the Mesozoic, stretching back hundreds of millions of years. Artists like Charles R. Knight brought them to life with vivid paintings, showing them not as sluggish monsters, but as dynamic animals in lush prehistoric landscapes. Museums became cathedrals of deep time, with mounted skeletons towering over visitors like gateways into another age. And yet, early views of dinosaurs often portrayed them as failures, sluggish, cold-blooded reptiles doomed to extinction. For decades, textbooks described them as evolutionary dead ends, impressive in size, but lacking intelligence or adaptability. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that this perception began to change. In the 1960s and 70s, paleontology experienced what became known as the dinosaur renaissance. Scientists like John Ostrom and Robert Bakker challenged the old view. Ostrom's discovery of Deinonychus, a swift, intelligent predator with sickle-shaped claws, suggested dinosaurs were active, agile, and possibly warm-blooded. Fossil evidence of feathers hinted at connections between dinosaurs and birds. Bakker argued passionately that dinosaurs were not evolutionary failures, but one of history's greatest success stories, dominating the Earth for over 160 million years. The idea of dinosaurs as dynamic, warm-blooded, and socially complex revolutionized how both scientists and the public saw them. This new vision of dinosaurs leapt into popular culture. In 1993, Steven Spielberg's Jurassic Park brought them roaring onto movie screens with unprecedented realism. The sight of a towering Brachiosaurus lifting its neck to the sky, or a pack of velociraptors hunting with eerie intelligence seared itself into collective memory. Dinosaurs were no longer dusty skeletons in museums. They were alive, breathing, terrifying, magnificent. The film, built on the foundation of the dinosaur renaissance, transformed how a generation saw prehistoric life. Meanwhile, science continued to uncover new wonders. Fossils from China revealed dinosaurs with feathers preserved in exquisite detail, their plumage shimmering across 120 million years. These discoveries confirmed what Ostrom had suspected. Birds were not just related to dinosaurs, they were dinosaurs. Every crow, every eagle, every pigeon is a living descendant of the theropods, carrying forward the legacy of velociraptors and Tyrannosaurus. Modern technology has deepened this knowledge further. CT scans peer inside fossil skulls, revealing brain structures. Isotope analysis reconstructs diets and climates. Computer simulations model how dinosaurs moved, how they hunted, how they grew. Even fragments of ancient proteins and pigments have been found, hinting at colors once thought lost forever. The dinosaurs, it seems, are not done speaking. Every year, new species are discovered, over 50 annually, reminding us that the story is far from complete. Dinosaurs are more than scientific subjects. They are cultural touchstones. They inspire awe in children who clutch toy T-Rexes, fascination in artists who paint prehistoric scenes, and curiosity in scientists who devote their lives to decoding fossils. They appear in films, novels, and video games, symbols of power, mystery, and extinction. Few creatures bridge the gap between science and imagination as powerfully as dinosaurs. Their discovery has also changed how we see ourselves. By uncovering the bones of creatures that ruled long before humans, we have learned humility. We are reminded that Earth's history is vast, that humanity is a newcomer on a stage where dinosaurs once played the starring role. Their fossils are not just relics, they are lessons. They tell us that no reign lasts forever, that even the greatest can fall, and that survival depends on adaptability. And yet their legacy also gives us hope. Dinosaurs show us that life is resilient, that even in extinction, stories endure. Through birds, they continue to soar. Through fossils, they continue to teach. Through culture, they continue to inspire. They are not merely echoes of the past. They are companions in the present, guiding our understanding of evolution, extinction, and survival. Imagine walking into a great museum hall. Before you stands the skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus rex, its skull massive, its teeth bared. Children stare in awe. Adults crane their necks. Whispers ripple through the crowd. It is not just a skeleton, it is a bridge across time, a handshake with a world lost to fire and stone. The bones are silent, yet they roar with stories of ancient forests, of battles fought, of an empire ended. In that moment, the dinosaurs are alive again, not in flesh, but in memory, imagination, and science. The discovery of dinosaurs is, in truth, a story about us, about our hunger to know, to dig into the earth and uncover its secrets, about our capacity to turn bones into knowledge and knowledge into meaning. The dinosaurs waited patiently for millions of years, their fossils hidden beneath our feet. When we finally found them, we found not only their story, but also our own. A story of curiosity, of rivalry, of wonder, of connection to the deep past. The echoes beneath the earth still call to us. Every fossil unearthed is a new verse in a song that began long before humanity. Every feather trapped in stone is a reminder that the skies have been filled with wings for far longer than we have walked the ground. Dinosaurs may be gone, but through discovery, they continue to live. And as long as we keep searching, as long as we keep listening to the stones, the dinosaurs will never truly be extinct. Dinosaurs are not just creatures of the past, they are teachers of the present. Their bones, their feathers, their very absence all whisper lessons about survival, fragility, and resilience. For over 160 million years, they thrived on Earth, adapting to shifting climates, splitting continents, and evolutionary arms races that reshaped ecosystems again and again. Their story is not simply one of dominance and extinction, but a profound narrative about life itself. To study the dinosaurs is to study ourselves, to confront questions of endurance, vulnerability, and what it means to survive on a fragile planet. When we look back at the Mesozoic, we see a world of transformation. Dinosaurs began humbly, small reptiles competing in the shadows of larger archosaurs. They became giants, filling every niche, from armored plant eaters to swift hunters to flying pioneers. They weathered disasters, evolved new strategies, and spread across every continent. For 160 million years they endured. This in itself is a lesson. Dominance is not built in a day, but in persistence. The dinosaurs remind us that life adapts, and adaptability is the key to survival. But they also teach us humility. For all their power, dinosaurs could not escape the randomness of fate. The asteroid that struck 66 million years ago was not a test they could pass. It was a catastrophe beyond their control, a cosmic accident that erased the mightiest creatures the Earth had ever seen. Their fall reminds us that no empire, no matter how vast, is invulnerable. Humanity, for all its technology and achievements, lives under the same sky, subject to the same forces. The lesson is clear. We are not immune to chance, and we must live with awareness of our fragility. There is also a lesson in resilience. Dinosaurs as a group did not vanish entirely. Their lineage survives in birds, living reminders of what once was. The sparrow at your window, the eagle soaring above mountains, the penguin sliding across ice, all are dinosaurs, heirs of a legacy that refused to die. Life finds a way, and sometimes survival comes not through size or strength, but through flexibility and adaptation. The small, the nimble, the adaptable are often the ones who endure. When we examine the fossil record, we also see patterns. Cycles of boom and bust, flourishing and collapse. Ecosystems thrive, then falter, then rebuild in new forms. Dinosaurs participated in this dance just as we do now. Their story warns us of the fragility of ecosystems. They remind us that abundance can mask vulnerability, that success can tip into collapse if the balance is broken. In today's world, with climate shifting rapidly and species vanishing at alarming rates, the warning is stark. Dinosaurs show us that no reign is eternal. If the giants could fall, so too can we. Yet their story is not just cautionary. It is inspiring. Dinosaurs reveal the sheer creativity of evolution. They came in endless shapes and forms. Armored tanks like Ankylosaurus, horned fortresses like Triceratops, duck-billed grazers that sang across floodplains, predators with teeth like sabers, and flyers that ruled the skies. Their diversity tells us that life is not bound by limits, but constantly invents. The lesson here is one of imagination. Just as evolution sculpted these wonders, we too can imagine new ways to live, new ways to adapt, new ways to thrive on a changing planet. Dinosaurs also remind us of the importance of curiosity. It was human curiosity that uncovered their bones, pieced together their skeletons, and brought them back to life in our understanding. Without curiosity, they would remain silent beneath stone. With it, they have become not just creatures of the past, but companions of our imagination. To seek knowledge, to dig deeper, to wonder, these are the tools that keep their story alive. And in keeping their story alive, we also keep alive the possibility of learning from them. Consider the resilience of birds, the living dinosaurs. They are everywhere, on mountaintops, in deserts, across oceans, in cities. They have adapted to every environment, from the freezing poles to tropical jungles. Their survival teaches us that diversity is strength. A species too specialized may falter when conditions shift, but those with variety, flexibility, and innovation endure. In this way, the smallest of dinosaurs teach us the grandest lesson. Survival belongs not to the strongest, but to the most adaptable. The dinosaurs also speak to us about time. Their reign was unimaginably long, more than 160 million years. Humanity's entire existence is a blink compared to that span. To put it in perspective, if Earth's history were a single day, dinosaurs would have ruled for more than 4 hours, while humans have existed for barely a few seconds. This lesson is one of humility, but also of perspective. We are newcomers to a stage long occupied by others. The Earth does not belong to us alone. It is a shared inheritance, a story written by countless creatures before us. And yet, in our short time, we have gained the power to alter the planet at a pace faster than almost any natural event in history. We are shaping climates, shifting ecosystems, and driving extinctions. The dinosaurs warn us what happens when balance is lost. They show us how fragile abundance can be, how quickly dominance can end. Their fall is not just a story of the past. It is a mirror held up to our present. But there is hope in their story too. Out of their extinction came opportunity. Mammals, once small and hidden, rose to fill the void. Birds diversified, carrying dinosaurian traits into a new world. Even mass extinction could not silence life's creativity. This teaches us resilience on a planetary scale. Even when everything changes, new forms emerge. Life persists, adapts, and reinvents itself. We, as humans, face our own challenges: climate change, habitat loss, dwindling biodiversity. Dinosaurs remind us that we are not immune, but they also remind us that adaptability, imagination, and resilience can carry life forward. Their story is both a warning and a promise. A warning that even the mightiest can fall, but a promise that survival in some form is always possible. There is another lesson, more subtle but profound: the power of legacy. Dinosaurs are gone, but they are not forgotten. Their bones inspire awe, their descendants fly overhead, their stories fill books and screens. Legacy matters. What we leave behind defines how we are remembered. Dinosaurs left behind more than bones. They left behind lessons written into the earth, lessons that still shape us today. Imagine standing on a cliff, holding a fossilized tooth of a Tyrannosaurus rex. It is heavy, sharp, ancient. That tooth is not just an object. It is a teacher. It tells you of power, of survival, of sudden endings. It whispers of a world where giants roamed, and it warns of how fragile that world was. Holding it, you realize you too are part of this story, a participant in Earth's great experiment with life. Dinosaurs teach us patience. They show us that greatness is measured not in centuries, but in millions of years. They teach us humility, reminding us that we are temporary actors on a stage much larger than ourselves. They teach us creativity, showing how life can invent new shapes, new strategies, new ways of being. And above all, they teach us resilience, the truth that life finds a way even in the face of disaster. The lessons of dinosaurs are timeless because they are written in the bones of the earth itself. Every fossil we uncover is a page in that book. Every bird a living sentence. Every song at dawn a reminder that their story continues. If we listen, if we pay attention, we can learn not just about the past, but about our own future. Dinosaurs are not simply gone. They are guides. They show us how to live, how to endure, how to imagine. Their story is a mirror and a map, a caution and an inspiration. In their rise we see possibility. In their fall we see warning. In their survival through birds we see resilience. And in their fossils we see the power of curiosity to bridge millions of years. We live in their shadow still, not as rivals, but as heirs. Their lessons are ours to carry forward. The giants may be gone, but their voices remain, echoing through stone, sky, and song. And if we listen closely, we can hear what they are telling us. Adapt, endure, imagine, and never forget that even the greatest empires can fall, but life always finds a way. Dinosaurs may have disappeared from the Earth 66 million years ago, but in the realm of imagination they never went extinct. From the moment humans uncovered their bones, these creatures have captivated minds, inspiring myths, stories, art, and science. They live on not only in fossils, but in the culture of every generation, transformed into symbols of power, mystery, and endurance. This chapter explores how dinosaurs have shaped human imagination, from ancient legends to modern blockbusters, and how they continue to influence the way we see ourselves and our world. Long before the word dinosaur was invented, people stumbled across their fossils. To ancient farmers in China, the massive bones found in the ground were dragon bones, thought to carry mystical properties. Crushed and ground into powder, they were used in traditional medicine, believed to cure ailments and strengthen the body. In Greece, fossilized skulls of horned animals were interpreted as proof of mythical creatures like griffins. In medieval Europe, gigantic femurs and teeth were taken as evidence of biblical giants, or the remains of monsters slain by saints. Without the science of paleontology, imagination filled the gaps, and dinosaurs became woven into the myths of human culture. The 19th century changed everything. With the rise of paleontology, dinosaurs were no longer just curiosities, but real creatures that once walked the earth. The naming of Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Hylaeosaurus in the early 1800s marked the dawn of dinosaur science. And Richard Owen's creation of the word dinosauria in 1842 gave them a name that carried both terror and wonder. Public exhibitions like the Crystal Palace sculptures in London turned them into spectacles, drawing crowds eager to marvel at life-sized reconstructions of beasts that once ruled the world. For the first time, dinosaurs became part of collective imagination, not as myth, but as history revealed. In the late 19th century, The bone wars between Cope and Marsh further fueled public fascination. Their discoveries of Stegosaurus, Allosaurus, and Apatosaurus filled museums with skeletons that awed visitors. Newspapers reported on their battles and findings, turning dinosaurs into cultural icons. By the early 20th century, dinosaur skeletons towered over museum halls in New York, Chicago, London, and Paris. Children gazed upward at their massive forms, sparking dreams that would ripple across generations. Dinosaurs were no longer just bones in stone. They were stars in the theatre of the human mind. Artists helped breathe life into these skeletons. Charles R. Knight, with his paintings of prehistoric life, gave dinosaurs personality and context. His depictions of Triceratops locked in combat with Tyrannosaurus, or sauropods wading through swamps, defined how people imagined dinosaurs for decades. These images were not merely scientific. They were emotional, turning bones into characters, into stories. Dinosaurs became not only subjects of study, but figures of narrative, creatures whose lives could be pictured, whose battles could be dramatized. Cinema soon amplified this imagination. In 1925, The Lost World brought dinosaurs to the silver screen, using stop-motion animation to depict them rampaging through jungles and cities. The magic of moving images made them seem alive again, sparking awe and terror in audiences. In the decades that followed, dinosaurs appeared in countless films, from B-movies to children's adventures. They became metaphors for primal fear, for the unknown, for nature's unstoppable power. Then came Jurassic Park in 1993, and everything changed. With groundbreaking computer-generated imagery, dinosaurs were reborn in lifelike realism. The sight of a Brachiosaurus raising its neck to the sky, the thundering footsteps of a T-Rex, the chilling intelligence of velociraptors, these images etched themselves into global memory. Jurassic Park did more than entertain. It reshaped how people imagined dinosaurs. No longer sluggish monsters, they were agile, dynamic, terrifying, and magnificent. The film ignited a dinosaur renaissance in culture, inspiring new generations to study paleontology, collect fossils, and dream of lost worlds. Dinosaurs in imagination are not confined to film. They appear in novels, comics, video games, and toys. From Michael Crichton's techno-thrillers to children's books where friendly dinosaurs play with kids, they occupy every corner of literature. In video games, they are both enemies to battle and companions to tame, embodying primal danger and wild beauty. Toys like plastic T-Rexes or Lego dinosaurs fill toy chests around the world, sparking curiosity in children before they even know the word paleontology. Dinosaurs have become part of childhood itself, a rite of wonder passed from one generation to the next. They also function as metaphors. In politics, the word dinosaur often describes something outdated, stubborn, or unwilling to adapt. In industry, it refers to giants that fail to keep up with change. At the same time, dinosaurs symbolize strength and endurance, their massive size and dominance serving as models for mascots, logos, and team names. A dinosaur can be a warning of extinction or a symbol of survival, depending on the story being told. Their influence extends into art and philosophy. Dinosaurs raise questions about time, about the fleeting nature of dominance, about humanity's place in history. Standing before the skeleton of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, one cannot help but reflect on the brevity of human civilization compared to the reign of these creatures. They spark existential wonder. If such giants could vanish, what of us? Dinosaurs embody both awe at nature's creativity and humility before its power. Science, too, has reshaped imagination. The discovery of feathered dinosaurs in China in the late 20th century revolutionized how we see them. Velociraptors, once imagined as scaly lizards, are now understood to have been feathered, bird-like predators. This new image has challenged filmmakers, artists, and toy makers, forcing imagination to evolve alongside evidence. Dinosaurs continue to change in our minds as science changes, reminding us that imagination is not static but dynamic, just like life itself. Dinosaurs also inspire action. Fossil digs around the world draw volunteers eager to touch history with their hands. Museums design exhibits not just to display skeletons, but to immerse visitors in ancient ecosystems. Educational programs use dinosaurs as gateways to teach children about evolution, geology, and climate. By capturing imagination, dinosaurs become teachers, sparking curiosity that extends far beyond themselves. they also serve as warnings in our stories. Films and books often use dinosaurs as metaphors for human hubris, for tampering with forces beyond control. In Jurassic Park, the resurrection of dinosaurs through genetic engineering is not just spectacle, but a cautionary tale. Life cannot be contained, and nature is not easily mastered. Dinosaurs become storytellers of risk, symbols of what happens when arrogance collides with nature's power. Yet they are also symbols of hope. Their survival through birds reminds us that extinction is not always the end. Their bones remind us that stories endure even after life is gone. Their presence in our culture shows the resilience of imagination, how creatures that vanished millions of years ago can still dominate minds today. Dinosaurs are proof that memory, curiosity, and creativity can outlast extinction. Imagine a child holding a plastic dinosaur, roaring across the living room floor. That roar is more than play. It is a reenactment of history, a spark of curiosity, a connection across time. Imagine a paleontologist brushing away dirt from a fossil, feeling the weight of millions of years in her hands. Imagine an artist painting feathers on a raptor, bringing color back to stone. In each case, dinosaurs live again, in play, in science, in art. Dinosaurs in our imagination are as real as they ever were in flesh. They inspire, they warn, they delight. They remind us of the vastness of Earth's history, the creativity of life, and the fragility of existence. They bridge science and myth, past and present, reality and dream. They are not simply creatures of stone, but companions in our journey of wonder. And as long as we imagine them, dinosaurs will never die. The story of dinosaurs is not finished. Their bones may be ancient, their reign long ended, but our understanding of them continues to evolve. Each year brings new discoveries, new technologies, and new insights that transform the way we imagine the age of dinosaurs. Paleontology, once a science of dusty bones and guesswork, is now at the frontier of biology, chemistry, physics, and even computer science. The future of paleontology is not only about discovering new species, it is about uncovering deeper truths of life itself, how it adapts, how it thrives, and how it ends. The journey begins with the rocks. For centuries, fossils were found by accident. Farmers ploughing fields, miners digging tunnels, travelers stumbling upon bones. Today, paleontology is systematic, guided by satellite imaging, geological mapping, and drones that scan remote cliffs and deserts. Scientists can identify promising fossil beds from space, narrowing the search before ever setting foot on the ground. What was once blind luck is now precise exploration, combining old-fashioned digging with cutting-edge technology. Excavation itself has changed too. Teams use delicate instruments to free bones from stone, mapping every layer with lasers and 3D scanners. Entire dig sites are digitally preserved, allowing researchers worldwide to study them without leaving their labs. Fossils no longer vanish into museums as isolated specimens. They are part of a shared global database, connected by the internet. This democratization of data means discoveries in Mongolia can be studied in Brazil, and fossils in Canada can be examined in Japan. Paleontology is becoming a collective endeavor, uniting the world in the study of deep time. But the most transformative advances are in the laboratory. Fossils are no longer just bones, they are archives of biology. Using CT scans, scientists peer inside skulls to reconstruct brains and senses. They can determine whether a dinosaur had keen eyesight, powerful smell, or advanced hearing. By slicing bones into microscopic thin sections, paleontologists study growth rings, like those in trees, revealing how fast dinosaurs grew and how long they lived. These techniques have shown us that many dinosaurs matured rapidly, reaching adult size in a few short years, a clue that they were warm-blooded. Active animals, not sluggish reptiles, even color, once thought forever lost, is being revealed. Under powerful microscopes, paleontologists have identified structures called melanosomes in fossilized feathers, tiny pigment carriers that survive for millions of years. By comparing them with those in modern birds, scientists have reconstructed the colors of ancient plumage. Microraptor, for instance, likely shimmered with iridescent black feathers like a raven. Other dinosaurs bore patterns of stripes, spots, or even fiery reds and oranges. The future of paleontology will paint the age of dinosaurs in vivid hues, transforming them from grey skeletons into living, colourful creatures. Chemical analysis is opening even more doors. Fossils sometimes preserve traces of proteins, collagen, and even soft tissue. These fragments of biochemistry offer a tantalizing glimpse into dinosaur biology, bridging the gap between bone and blood. Though DNA itself is unlikely to survive millions of years, proteins can. They provide clues about relationships, metabolism, and physiology. Some scientists dream that one day, advances in molecular science may allow us to reconstruct not the genomes, but the molecular fingerprints of dinosaurs, pushing paleontology into the realm of molecular biology. Computers, too, are reshaping the science. With powerful simulations, paleontologists can model how dinosaurs walked, ran, or even flew. By inputting skeletal data, muscle reconstructions, and physics, they recreate motion in digital space. These models test hypotheses. How fast could T-Rex really run? How did sauropods support their massive necks? Could Spinosaurus truly swim? Questions once answered by speculation are now tested by algorithms. The dinosaurs come alive on screens not as fantasy, but as science, their movements guided by data and physics. Artificial intelligence is accelerating discovery. Algorithms can scan thousands of rock layers, identifying fossil-bearing strata faster than any human eye. Machine learning models analyze fossil shapes, classifying species, and even predicting evolutionary relationships. Soon, paleontologists may feed an incomplete fossil into an AI, which will reconstruct its likely form based on millions of comparisons. The pace of discovery is quickening, driven by technology that sees patterns invisible to humans. Yet paleontology remains rooted in wonder. Each new fossil is more than data. It is a voice from the past. A single claw, a tooth, or a feather can overturn assumptions, rewrite textbooks, and ignite imaginations. The future promises more of these moments. In Antarctica, beneath miles of ice, fossils wait to be uncovered. Remnants of a time when the continent was lush with forests and dinosaurs thrived there. In the deserts of Africa, many regions remain unexplored, promising new giants and new mysteries. Even in well-studied places like North America, new species are found every year, hiding in stone that has been walked over for centuries. The future of paleontology is also interdisciplinary. It draws from genetics, robotics, climate science, and beyond. To understand dinosaurs fully, we must understand the world they lived in, the climates they endured, the plants they ate, the oceans that rose and fell. Paleontologists now collaborate with climatologists to model ancient atmospheres, with ecologists to reconstruct food webs, with engineers to test biomechanics. Dinosaurs are not isolated creatures. They are pieces of ecosystems, and studying them means studying life as a whole. Education is transforming too. Virtual reality allows students to walk beside digital dinosaurs, to watch ecosystems unfold in immersive simulations. Augmented reality lets fossils be studied in classrooms, projected in 3D onto desks and screens. Children who may never travel to a museum can still meet dinosaurs face to face, inspiring curiosity that crosses boundaries of geography and wealth. The dinosaurs are not confined to bones behind glass. They are becoming part of everyday learning, accessible to anyone with a screen. Popular culture will continue to play its part. Films, games, and novels spark curiosity that often leads to careers in science. Every child who dreams of being a paleontologist after watching a dinosaur movie is part of the future of the field. This interplay between imagination and science keeps dinosaurs alive in the public consciousness, fueling funding, interest, and innovation. The future of paleontology depends as much on inspiration as it does on technology. But the greatest lesson dinosaurs offer is not about themselves. It is about survival. By studying their rise and fall, we learn about climate change, mass extinction, and resilience. Dinosaurs remind us that no species, however dominant, is immune to catastrophe. Their bones are warnings carved into stone, teaching us about fragility and adaptation. In an age when humanity faces its own environmental crises, these lessons are more relevant than ever. Paleontology is not just about the past, it is about preparing for the future. And what of the dream that captures so many imaginations? The return of dinosaurs. Films like Jurassic Park raise the question of de-extinction, of resurrecting the giants through genetic engineering. While true cloning of dinosaurs remains impossible, related efforts are already underway with mammoths and other recently extinct species. Even if dinosaurs themselves never walk again, the possibility forces us to ask, should we, not just could we? The ethics of reviving vanished species will shape science in the years to come, blending paleontology with philosophy. The future of paleontology is both scientific and human. It will uncover new species, reconstruct ancient worlds, and refine our understanding of evolution. But it will also continue to inspire awe, to remind us of our smallness in deep time, and to connect us to a history that stretches beyond imagination. Dinosaurs are not just subjects of study. They are bridges between the past and the present, guides into the mysteries of life itself. Picture the next century of paleontology. A drone scans a desert in Mongolia, detecting fossils below the sand. A team of scientists reconstructs a dinosaur in virtual reality, its feathers shimmering with colors determined by melanosomes. Children in classrooms across the globe put on headsets and walk through a digital Cretaceous forest, hearing the calls of hadrosaurs and the beating wings of pterosaurs. In a laboratory, proteins from a fossil reveal secrets of metabolism, connecting dinosaurs to birds with greater clarity than ever before. And in a museum, a family stands before a skeleton, eyes wide with wonder. The bones are ancient, but the feeling is eternal. The dinosaurs are gone, but their story grows richer with every generation. Their bones still speak, and we are still learning to listen. The future of paleontology is limitless. A journey not just into the past, but into the very heart of what it means to live on a planet shaped by time. Chance and survival. The dinosaurs are waiting, still buried in stone, still flying in the skies above, still roaring in our imaginations. The future will find them again and again. The story of the dinosaurs is not only about them, it is also about us. When we study their bones, imagine their worlds, and marvel at their power, we are ultimately holding a mirror to ourselves. Dinosaurs ruled the Earth for 160 million years, far longer than humans have existed, and their rise and fall offer profound insights into our own place in time. This final chapter is not about fossils or scientific details, but about meaning, what dinosaurs tell us about our planet, about survival, and about the fragile yet enduring thread of life. Dinosaurs remind us of the immensity of time. Humanity measures history in centuries or millennia, but dinosaurs lived in spans that stretch beyond comprehension. For more than 80 times the length of all recorded human history, they thrived in ecosystems that rose and fell, continents that drifted and split, climates that warmed and cooled. To contemplate their reign is to feel small, to realize that our entire existence is but a heartbeat in Earth's story. Yet in that smallness lies perspective. We are part of a much larger narrative, inheritors of a world shaped by those who came before. They also remind us of fragility. Dinosaurs seemed unassailable, the apex of evolution, filling every niche and dominating every continent. And yet, in a single day, an asteroid struck, and their world collapsed. It was not weakness that doomed them, but chance, the blind strike of fate. This lesson resonates for us. We too may see ourselves as invincible, masters of technology and Earth. But the dinosaurs whisper caution. No reign is eternal, no species immune. Catastrophe can arrive suddenly, without warning. To live wisely is to acknowledge vulnerability, and yet within their story is resilience. Though most dinosaurs perished, their lineage survived through birds. Today, more than 10,000 species of birds soar, sing, and thrive across the globe. They are the living dinosaurs, proof that life adapts, that survival can come in unexpected forms. When you hear a sparrow chirp at dawn or see an eagle wheel against the sky, you are witnessing resilience written in feather and bone. This resilience is a lesson for us. Survival often belongs not to the strongest, but to the most adaptable. Dinosaurs also reveal the creativity of life. From armored ankylosaurs to horned triceratops, from colossal sauropods to sleek raptors, their diversity was staggering. Evolution sculpted them into endless forms, each adapted to its world, each a solution to survival's puzzle. This creativity is a reminder that life itself is an artist, painting with time and chance. Humanity too carries this creativity, not in bones, but in ideas, culture, and imagination. Dinosaurs inspire us to think bigger, to see possibility in variety, to recognize that the world is always richer and stranger than it first appears. Their extinction offers perhaps the most sobering lesson: the cost of imbalance. Before the asteroid, ecosystems were already strained by volcanic upheaval and climate instability. When catastrophe struck, the delicate web of life collapsed quickly. Today we face our own instabilities, changing climates, disappearing habitats, vanishing species. The dinosaurs remind us that even dominant creatures can fall when balance is lost. Their story is a warning carved in stone. Protect the Earth or risk repeating their fate. But dinosaurs are more than warnings. They are sources of wonder. Their bones tower in museums, sparking awe in children and adults alike. Their images fill books, films, and imaginations, reminding us that the world is far older, far wilder than our daily lives suggest. Wonder is not trivial. It is vital. To feel awe before the past is to remember humility, curiosity, and the desire to learn. Dinosaurs give us that gift, connecting us to deep time and to the mystery of life itself. The eternal roar of dinosaurs is not heard in jungles or plains, but in our imagination. It rumbles when a child plays with a plastic T-Rex, when a paleontologist brushes dirt from a fossil, when a filmmaker brings raptors to life on screen. It echoes in birdsong at dawn, in the flap of wings over oceans, in the skeletons that stand silent, yet mighty in museum halls. Dinosaurs may be gone, but their roar is eternal, reverberating through memory, culture, and science. What does this mean for humanity's place in time? It means that we too are temporary. Our cities, our empires, our technologies may seem enduring, but they are brief chapters in Earth's long story. To understand dinosaurs is to understand impermanence. Yet it also means that we are part of something vast. We walk the same ground, breathe the same air, inherit the same planet. Our lives are threads woven into the same tapestry, stretching back to the first spark of life. The legacy of dinosaurs is not simply about bones. It is about perspective. They teach us humility in the face of time, caution in the face of fragility, inspiration in the face of diversity, and hope in the face of catastrophe. They remind us that even in extinction, life endures, reinvents, and continues. They remind us that our own future is not guaranteed, but it is still unwritten, still open to choice, adaptation, and resilience. Imagine standing on a quiet plain at sunrise. Birds wheel overhead, their cries filling the air. You know they are dinosaurs, survivors of an age long past. Beneath your feet, deep in the earth, lie the bones of giants who once thundered across the land. The air is filled with echoes, roars long silenced, wings still beating. In that moment, you feel the continuity of life, the unbroken chain that stretches from them to you. The dinosaurs are not gone. They are with us always, in stone, in feather, in memory, in lesson. The eternal roar is not a sound, but a truth. It is the truth that life is fragile, yet enduring. That power is fleeting, yet legacy lasts. That every moment is part of a story millions of years old. The dinosaurs remind us to look both backward and forward. Backward to learn, forward to imagine, and inward to understand our place. And so their story ends, not in silence, but in continuity. The dinosaurs walk the earth, and though they fell, their roar echoes still. It echoes in every bird that sings, in every fossil uncovered, in every dream of lost worlds. It is a roar that belongs to the earth itself, a reminder that life is ancient, that we are part of something greater, that time is vast and precious. We are listeners now, heirs to the echoes of giants, and if we pay attention, if we learn their lessons, if we carry their wonder, then the eternal roar of the dinosaurs will never fade.